Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the ROKER Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav and you join us once again to talk about how Sunderland got beat at the weekend. Unfortunately for these guys, they're going to spend at least half an hour with me mulling over everything good and bad about Sunderland at the minute, mostly bad. First of all, Martin's with me. Hi Martin.
Hello mate.
Hiya mate. You look... Well, it's very dark, so what time is it? It's early here.
10 to 9 after having about, 3.5 hours sleep last night for
lovely.
Getting up to watch the game, trying to get back to sleep and mulling over everything that went wrong.
And we're also delighted to be joined by BBC Look North's Jeff Brown. Hi, Jeff.
Hi guys.
Hiya, mate. We'll let the listeners in on this. We've had a few IT problems, but we're there now, aren't we, Jeff? We're ready to talk. That's probably why we're a bit more chirpy than we should be.
It's even more trying than watching the game.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the Zoom to work.
I'll come to you first, Jeff, not to bring the mood down, but Sunderland, what's going on, in your opinion? What's going on? Why have we just capitulated? Because we sit here nearly every week and talk about it, and we've got our own theories on things, but you've got a different perspective being obviously from the local press. So what do you think's going wrong at Sunderland at the minute?
Wow,
it's a big question.
How long have you got? Yeah, I mean, really, no one should be that surprised by it because it's happened so often in the past. I think it's just that it's happened so quickly and it's been so dramatic. You know, the end of the year, top of the league, 5-0 against Sheffield Wednesday, probably best performance of the season. And then suddenly, 2 months, 9 games later, and they've just completely fallen off the edge of the cliff. Alex Neil, I was at Wimbledon last week, and Alex Neil hit the nail on the head straight away and said what a lot of people had been thinking. And when he says it, it's fairly obvious. You've got a lot of young kids in the team who have not played at this level before, not played so many games of football in a season. They're probably under 23s. They probably play about 20 games all year. They're now going to be playing about 50. They look physically and mentally tired. And then on the other hand, you've got more experienced guys who have either just come into the team but have hardly played, like Jermaine Defoe, well short of match fitness, and not many alternatives. Not much in between. And the imbalance is the team has just looked so unbalanced at the moment. And I think when you look beyond that, you think, he spotted it straight away. What can you do? There appears to be no quick fix for this. And you can't hammer the young lads. People like Dan Neil, who started off the season like a whirlwind, and he thought, wow, this kid looks great. Poor lad, when he put that pass into touch yesterday, you could just see the weight of the world on his shoulders. And Callum Doyle, where he was breezing through games at the start of the season, is now, as soon as he gets it, how many passes were there between the centre-backs and the keeper? Because there's now that fear, if I put a ball forward and it doesn't come off, then, the fans are going to be on my back a bit. So... Yeah, it's and who do you blame? I don't know. Would Lee Johnson have done any better? I suppose he built this team, and there are no ready-made replacements for Alex Neil to come in on. So would Lee Johnson have done any better? I personally think they shouldn't have sacked him. It was only a month since he won manager of the month. Let him see the job through. But at the moment there doesn't seem to be a quick fix, and the team just looks in free fall. Just glad they've got enough points to make sure they don't go down.
That's interesting what Jeff says there, Martin, and it's true. There is no quick fix. Like when I met with Malk in the bar to record the reaction pod, we were both just totally perplexed. Like, what do you actually do now? Like, everybody knows, including the manager, what the problems are in terms of the playing personnel. We haven't got another left back, so we're flogging this kid who's playing there every week, and he's been really poor, and you can see he needs to come out of the team. We don't have another left back. At centre half, Doyle, as Jeff just pointed out, Doyle is struggling big style. Every time the ball comes up in the air and he's looking at it, it's like putting the fear of God into him. And he's making rash decisions and having to recover from them when he's got the ball. And then you look into midfield, Dan Neil, who was a superstar 2 or 3 months ago, is now way off the pace, struggling badly, and I'm not digging them out. What I'm saying is we don't have the options there to replace them. We don't have a left back and a centre half, and that's when you have to then look to the guy who makes those decisions and who's overseeing the football operation. Kristjaan Speakman has basically, he's not adequately built a team in January to get us promoted, because we are now desperately short a number of positions. Like, what does Alex Neil do?
He's got a hard job, hasn't he? And I'm not sure he's making it easy for himself with the team selection and tactics that he's set out with for the past 2 games. It's one of those kind of easy things to assume, isn't it? When you look at, if you looked at our last few games before he took over, you go, well, they're way too open. They've got too many forwards on the pitch. They need a little bit of defensive stability in that team. I'll whack another centre midfield player in and it'll be all right. But you can understand that to an extent in an away game. Like I think it was just the day after Lee Johnson got sacked, or the day of Lee Johnson's sacking, where we said, actually, there's a lot of things going right here. At home, we're knocking up a lot of points. We've had the best home record in the league at that point. Away from home, we needed to be a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more defensive, and maybe grind out some points. So you can kind of see the logic in sort of toughening the midfield up and giving an extra body in there for an away game. But you had Dan Neil there, as we've said, he needs rest. It's quite clear and simple to see. For whatever reason, he decided to put Trey Hume on the bench and put Winchester at right back.
Yeah, I was just sorry to butt in on that, but we were trying to work out what the decision was with that. Hume had been one of the brighter sparks in the 2 games he'd started, and I was wondering, has he had a knock during the week? I don't know. I mean, we haven't heard anything. It just seemed a bit bizarre to me.
The fact that you take Hume out the side, and I think he's actually played well in the last couple of games. You remove the option of putting Winchester in centre midfield. By having 3 in the centre midfield as well, you're taking Pritchard out of the central areas where he's actually effective and putting him on the wing where he's ineffective. So you've got all of these things that you're kind of looking at and go, you know what? If you'd watched the last 3 or 4 games, you might think that's a logical thing to do. If you'd watched the season at home, you go, you know what? Having that 3 behind Ross Stewart and Stewart up front will blow teams away at home. And I think the team maybe suffered a little bit from having that more negative lineup. The crowd suffered a bit from having that negative lineup. And we had 1 shot on goal yesterday. And I don't care who we're playing at home, that's not right. We shouldn't be going or coming out of home games rather having had 1 shot on target.
No.
And it's no wonder that we're not picking up points at home or away.
Would you agree with Martin on that, Jeff, in terms of the tactics and stuff? You make some valid points there, to be fair. I know Alex Neil's been here 2 minutes.
No, absolutely. I thought Pritchard had one of his least effective games yesterday, and just because he wasn't as involved. He needs to be on the ball a lot. He's probably the only one at the moment who actually makes things happen for the team. And yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. He said afterwards that Alex Neil went to the press conference. He said at half time he had said to the players, if you've got an option to pass the ball forward, don't pass it back, which is what they tend to be doing. And that's what you do when you haven't got the confidence and when you're starting to worry about the crowd's reaction. He thought that Sunderland were the better side in the second half. I'm not quite sure that was...
I heard that. I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's but I suppose when you do analyse it, they were caught out with the ball down the middle, which with quick break, that's where both goals came from.
The frustrating thing wasn't it, that in that first half, we almost got caught out about 3 or 4 times with exactly the same ball coming over the top, in between the centre half and the full back, or in between the 2 centre halves. And we couldn't say that we didn't have warning signs there, because they nearly sprung us, say, 3 or 4 times in the first half, and to concede a goal so early in the second half from exactly the same type of thing.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And there should have been a third one at the end as well, shouldn't there?
Well, it should have been, that's right.
To be fair. And yet, when they equalised for about 10 minutes and Clark came on and looked lively and looked like he might make things happen, you did think, they might actually would go on and win this. But again, quite interesting that trying to win a game and Jermaine Defoe stays on the bench. So
I'm worried about Defoe.
That's a whole other issue.
Let's talk about it, because I was sat yesterday in my seat at the game thinking, right, what could he possibly do here? This was before he brought on Patrick Roberts, and I was thinking, he's not going to take Ross Stewart off. he's got all of these wide players that he needs to get into the game, and we've seen how bad we are when we don't have width on the pitch, and the fullbacks aren't giving us width because Winchester and Serkin aren't particularly great going forward. So he has to have width on the pitch. And you look at it and you think, well, he's not going to go two up front with two wingers because he just won't. That's not the modern way, is it? Like, managers don't do that anymore. They don't go 4-4-2. And I'm just looking and thinking, where does Jermaine Defoe even fit in? And I know people had these concerns when he was signed. People said, where does he fit in? When's he going to play? And I'm looking at it now. We've got 13 games left. And I'm just wondering, what do we do? Is he literally just an option when we're desperate? And even then, we were desperate in this game, and he didn't get on the pitch. And
he didn't get on.
I'm scratching my head.
I mean, the only way to play him really is a two-man attack, which obviously is something that they haven't done for a long time. So you've got to change the whole makeup of the team to get him in. He's not a target man, so, you know. And
you've got Nathan Broadhead coming in, Jeff, as well. You've got to remember that. Yeah, Broadhead's coming back soon. There's another competition in that position.
But the quality of service that Defoe has had for most of his career, certainly the latter part of his career, he's not going to get that at this level. He's going to have to do an awful lot more himself. I don't know. Maybe you play him from the start rather than, you know, and say, right, we'll give you 45 minutes, maybe an hour if you've got the legs for it. But he's an impact sub. He's not really, you know. We're not getting the balls into the box. We're not creating the chances for him to have any impact.
It puzzled me with Defoe and Ross Stewart because last week Neil took Ross Stewart off with about 20 minutes to go, didn't he? Mm-hmm. And he commented that Stewart was struggling. He'd played a lot of football and he was in need of a rest. And he commented, as he said earlier, Jeff, like the experienced players, and you know, you're looking at it and you go, well, it really is Defoe who he's talking about, who haven't got the match fitness. We had a reserve game in midweek, which, to me, if you got somebody like Defoe who needs some minutes, you give him 45 minutes in a game like that.
It was Monday. It was Monday, Martin, wasn't it? It was Monday, so
yeah,
it
wasn't
like
such a big gap between. Yeah, it wasn't as if it was Thursday night. It was Monday. There was plenty of time to recover from that and get ready for Saturday. And I was pondering this because we do the predicted lineup for the game before the game every week, and I was doing it on Thursday, and I actually thought, I wonder if he'll leave Ross Stewart on the bench this week and give Defoe an hour, give him a go, get his fitness up, and then you got Ross Stewart with fresh legs come on with 30 minutes left. And to me, that kind of made sense based off his comments from the previous week. But then when I watched the press conference on Friday, I thought there's no way in the world he's going to do that because he's basically saying Defoe's not fit enough to play. So you've got that quandary, haven't you? But like, how do you get fitness into the legs of players if you're not going to give them minutes on the field?
Yeah,
that is the thing with under 20. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go to reserve games all the time because not only because it was close, but because you got to see players coming back from injury and big names maybe in the opposition, and that just doesn't seem to happen now. It is it's under 23s for under 23s, and nobody seems to use it anymore as a way of getting players fit. And by the same token, just going back to talking about the young lads, you then get young lads who only ever play against other young lads and who get plenty of time on the ball. And then suddenly the pitch, you pitched into a division like this where you're up against guys literally twice your age and quite often twice your bulk and size and muscle. And it's, they're looking tired because the young lads going back to that because they come up against that. But Defoe, I mean, the whole, was that a factor in Lee Johnson being sacked? Nobody's definitively said it, but you'd be massively surprised if that wasn't one of the reasons that for a fallout between Johnson and Kristjaan Speakman or whoever decided that Jermaine Defoe was a good signing. Personally, I didn't think it was at the time, although I know the club was short of attacking options. But yeah, he put 8,000 on the gate who didn't turn up again this week. Maybe sold a few shirts. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think in the in the increase in gate, he probably paid for himself till the end of the season. But I would like to see him. I would like to see something different now going forward, and I don't know what different is because you look at the option. I think what Alex Neil's got to do, he's got to isolate the biggest problems he's got currently and just find a different way of playing. And for me, that means get Dennis Serkin out of the team. If he has to play a winger and go with a back three, I would do it purely because I just think that these lads were actually we're doing them a disservice by throwing them in constantly. So I would possibly look at a way of getting Cirkin out of the team, which would be maybe put a wing back in. And we've done that under Lee Johnson, and it's worked to varying degrees. But I think at this stage, you've got to try anything. Then at centre-half, Doyle is clearly flagging. Danny Bart, we've signed this. I know he hasn't played well, but we've signed him for a reason. He's come with experience in the higher league. You've got to get him back in the team somehow. And I would also like to just point out that we have another centre-half who we've just not seen, which is Arbonnet Jamajli. And he's left-footed. He can play that same position as Doyle. And I just sometimes I wonder why we're holding him back. I mean, do they think he's not up to scratch or whatever? At this stage, I think you've just got to give him a go. Then in the middle of the park with Dan Neil, Martin, you pointed out before, I think Winchester's the natural replacement there. Get him out of the team for a little bit. We're not helping them at all. We've got 13 games left. If you take them out the firing line for 2 or 3 games and then maybe revisit it down the line, reintroduce them very slowly, I would even give them a week off. I would just say to the 3 of them, I would say, go on lads, get yourselves home, go on holiday, whatever, come back after a week, refreshed, ready for the run-in. Because
the trouble is we've got no defenders though, have we? Well, that's the thing. You're saying, I agree with you in theory, like going to a back 3 or a back 5 and having either Diaku or Gooch or Trey Hume playing the wing-back positions makes sense. But if you take Doyle out of the team as well, you've got 3 at a push who could play those 3 centre-half positions, one completely untested, one out of form and injury-prone, and the other one injury-prone.
Well, so I just wonder if for a game or 2, though, is it worth trying it? Because...
Well, I think it is, but you can't let the other lads go off and have a rest, can you? Because if somebody pulls up in training and pulls up pre-game, you're going to need to bring them back into the starting 11.
Maybe I'm being a bit too emotive with that and thinking, let's get them away on holiday. But even so, take them out just take them out of the team, because it's not we can all see it. We can all see that they're desperate to come out with the team, and you've got to now look at it and think, what do we do? What are we going to do to change things around?
I mean, clearly they have to do something. It's just a shame this wasn't the first. If this was the first season at this level, then they could maybe get away with it. Jack Ross, when things started to crumble in his first season, said to us, because he used to quite often chat to the press after press conferences and open up a bit more, and he said the thing about this club is it doesn't have a plan. He said the only plan is get promoted, because obviously the guys who were in charge at the time didn't have the money to finance it beyond 1 year. It was basically got to get up this season. What Jack Ross said was it would have been better, clearly not to say it publicly, but within the club to think, right, if we don't get promoted, we're going to bring young guys through, get them all playing the same way, so it's the same system. Everybody knows how to, the formation and how we're going to approach games. And we'll bring lads through the system, bring them on for a couple of years. If they don't get promoted in the first year or the second year, well, maybe that's just the price the club's got to pay for getting everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. But you say what happens is when the only plan is get promoted, whatever, then you just start throwing anything at it to try and make it work. And, he did that and it didn't work. Phil Parkinson did it and it didn't work. And it seemed like Lee Johnson at the start of the season, because he's now got, in theory, has Kirill and all his money behind him, can say, right, if we don't get promoted, it's not going to completely bust the club, and we'll build gradually. It's a lovely idea in theory, but the problem you have is you've got a crowd there, 30-odd thousand, who are just sickened, after 2 successive relegations in like 4 years in Division 3. It's just awful when things go wrong.
That's it.
It's just like you can't blame them for being so devastated.
No, well, you look at the teams around us in the table, and they're all to a degree, I would say, punching above their weight, and we're very much still stuck in. I say punching above the weight. They've got aspirations to get into the Championship, because that's, for a lot of these clubs, the Championship's the best it'll ever get. Where with us, we know the potential of this club. We know exactly how good things can be when you do get it right, and that's constantly on the minds of people and the minds of fans. And when you go into games now, I was in there yesterday, and everyone's just sick. Everyone's fed up, and it's not a slight on anybody. I'm with them. I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. I'm stood in my seat and I'm just apathetic to it all. Connor Wickham came on, right? And every single person around me said he's going to score the winner. We all knew.
You just knew, didn't you?
Yeah, because that's just the way things are with this club. You just know these things are going to happen. You can predict it. You could write a book on it, and someone probably will at some point. And it's
in a parallel universe, somewhere, England have beaten Iceland in the European Championships, and Sam Allardyce is still. Yeah, it's happening somewhere. Yeah. Sam Allardyce is still manager, and Sunderland is still in the Premier League. So it's just we're not on the same plane as that. Unfortunately.
No, but the thing is now with Alex Neil, he has to adjust. He has to somehow adjust the mindset of everybody. We aren't getting automatic promotion now. It's totally off the table. It's not happening. We would have to win every game between now and the end of the season, and we all know that's not going to happen. But what he has to do, in my opinion, we need a win. We've got to win on Tuesday. We win on Tuesday. That is your starting point to move forward, to regain some confidence, and to collectively say, look, okay, automatics may be off the table, but we need to go into these playoffs in the best possible form. Because the last 2 times we've done it, we weren't. We were in terrible form, and by the time we played in the playoffs, people were just sick. The Lincoln game, we'd thrown it. I remember the time before that, we played Portsmouth in the semi-finals. It was the lowest crowd of the season because everyone were just fed up of the way that they'd thrown away the automatic promotion spot. And this time around, we've capitulated a lot earlier. So, people have got a little bit more time to get used to the idea we might have to go through the playoffs. And that's his task now. Not just sorting out this team in terms of getting lads out who desperately need to come out of the team, but adjusting the mindset like he did at Norwich. When he went in at Norwich, they were 7th in the table, like we are at the minute, funnily. They were 7th in the table. They'd had 1 win in 10. The manager who was in place before him got the sack. Neil came in, and he had to galvanise people. And bear in mind, Norwich had the season before dropped out of the Premier League, so people had been in the Premier League. They were expecting automatic promotion, and Norwich got the job done with him in charge. And it's a very similar task that he's got now with Sunderland, Jeff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was quite impressed with him yesterday. Yesterday was really the first time we had any sort of lengthy conversations with him after the game. And, he's certainly confident in his own ability, and he's quite sort of, quite forthright. Certainly he talks to sort of get, if you listen to Lee Johnson for long enough, you'd sort of fall asleep as he talked in all these manager coach speak. And Alex Neil was just a lot more sort of blunt, and makes you think that's probably what they need right now. They need telling, but he just hasn't got an awful lot of time to try and change things around.
Well, it was the Peterborough chairman, I think, Martin, who said when he was on with Chris earlier in the season, last season, that if you fire a manager halfway through a season, you're basically writing it off. And that's always stuck in my mind when I think about, when they sacked Johnson. It's a big call to get rid of a manager, especially when you're third in the table. It's a big call to make that decision, and whether it proves to be the right one, time will tell. But Alex Neil he's come into a thankless situation for me. I just think, a lot of these players were in support of Lee Johnson, from what we're told. So there's that to deal with. There's all the off-the-pitch stuff which has been going on in the last few weeks, which is maybe an unwanted distraction, I don't know. And then on top of that, we aren't getting results. So what is he... I mean, I know we've mulled this over multiple times, but what does he actually do? Like, Burton's on Tuesday. What does he do?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because, you said just before, Gav, that we have to we will be well acquainted with the fact that we're going to be in the playoffs and everybody can kind of ramp up too, but we have to actually finish in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And after yesterday, we're sitting outside the playoffs, and you've got the likes of, I think, like Sheffield, Ipswich and Bolton who are really creeping up on the rails there. So, actually finishing in the playoffs is going to be a challenge between now and the end of the season, I think. If you look at all the things that we've talked about in terms of the fitness of the players who we've got missing, the lack of options in defensive areas, like it's going to be a task, really. And we've got some tough games coming up. Burton, we never seem to do a great deal against Burton, and we've got Wigan on Saturday, haven't we? So there's it's not a foregone conclusion at all that we're going to be finishing in the playoffs. And if you think, Like that Wickham game, we'd beaten Sheffield 5-0, went to Wickham, and it was a bit of a depleted side that we had to put out because of COVID. Played the game when maybe we could have called it off, and we drew after conceding a last-minute goal. And, that was a disappointing result in terms of the fact that we conceded at the very last kick of it. But it was still a decent point away at Wickham. That was 42 days ago. Like, 42 days ago. And if you look from then to now, we've whether we've imploded, whether it's self-sabotage, whether, we've completely gone from one extreme to the other. And a lot of it's of our own doing. Like, when Johnson was sacked, he had 26 points from his previous 14 games, which is almost at 2 points per game form that you target for promotion. So it wasn't as if we'd gone, like you said, with the Norwich manager that Alex Neil took over from. It wasn't if we'd gone 1 win in 10. We were doing all right, and we've completely fallen off the edge of a cliff. Now, who knows whether that would have happened if Johnson was in charge or not? As you said earlier, Jeff, we just don't know. I would hazard the fact that, the likes of Tom Flanagan would still be at the club, and Jermaine Defoe probably wouldn't. Not that I'm saying Defoe is a problem in all of this, because I don't think he is. But I doubt Johnson would have got rid of Flanagan without having a replacement in the building. But Alex Neil's got a tough... as we said, he needs to get fitness back into players. He needs to rest some players so they actually come back at the end of the season stronger. But can he afford to rest players in the next 2 or 3 games? I don't think he can.
Without wanting to depress anyone listening, you would have to look at it and say the playoffs look to be out of reach. They look to be sinking so fast. And as you said, so many teams coming up on the rails. It would be actually now be a surprise if they managed to hang on to a playoff place. In the week that they got rid of Kevin Ball as well, it just sort of highlights the fact that there's no leader on the pitch. And there are a few players anyway in Sunderland's history who had such an impact on the field as Kevin Ball did. But there's really nobody like that, even remotely like Bawley, who in bad situations. So obvious, isn't it?
We haven't even talked about Corey Evans, but how is he captain of this team? Because I've never known a more anonymous captain of Sunderland, if I'm honest.
No.
Well, but there's nobody there when things were going badly who was going around and just shaking a fist saying, "Hey, come on, pull yourselves together." And I can't remember the last time the team had someone like that.
But the only player yesterday who kind of looked as if he could provide some of that in some respect was Matete in the first half. He was getting about people, getting stuck in. I think he faded quite badly in the second. But, he got the crowd up. He was chasing people. He's going into tackles. And, there's different types of leadership, and being brave on the field and, setting that example for other people is a type of leadership. It's not about shouting and pointing all the time. It's about leading by example. And I thought Matete did in the first half.
No, I think you're right. That was probably the brightest spot. It was just a shame that he was involved, I think, in both the goals that sent in the second one. Yeah. He gave the ball away in midfield, and I hope that doesn't prey on his mind and make him think, I can't try anything anymore, because he did actually look. But most of the players that Lee Johnson brought in the window, they must be sitting there thinking, so who did I sign? I signed for this guy and now he's gone. Am I really wanted at this club? It's strange. Just one of the many strange things that's happened in the last 2 years. It's
self-sabotage is what it is, let's be honest. I mean, I've got nothing against Alex Neil at all. I think actually, if you're looking at an appointment for any club in League One, he is a coup. Like, that's what we were told by Norwich fans and Preston fans. They all said, "Oh, you're getting him in League One. That's not bad." But it's the situation he's walked into, and that's when, and I mentioned this right at the start, you got to look above him. And if we are going to point the finger of blame, Kristjaan Speakman is the sporting director, so he oversees the football inside of the operation. He had a big say in whether Johnson got sacked. He had a big say in the recruitment process during the transfer window. He came out after the transfer window and justified the reasons for letting Denver Hume and Tom Flanagan leave. I think the point that stuck out was that it was to do right by them because they only had a short time left on their deals. What about Sunderland? Regardless of what anybody thinks about Denver Hume and Tom Flanagan, I'll put my hand up. Wasn't a massive fan of either of them. Denver, injury prone. When he did play a lot of games under Parkinson, he was all right. Flanagan probably had his best season for Sunderland this year, but then he faded badly towards the end. regardless of what I think of them personally, they play in two positions where we're now weaker. We didn't sign a left-back to replace Denver Hume, and we didn't sign a centre-half to replace Tom Flanagan. I know we signed Danny Bart, but at the start of January, we were all saying the same thing. We need a centre-half regardless. I don't think anybody factored in that Flanagan would leave. So he was allowed to leave, and we didn't replace them. And we're now looking at it and going, we need a centre-half and a left-back, and you didn't replace them. And that was a decision taken above Lee Johnson's head, and Alex Neil wasn't even in the door. So if we're looking to point fingers and ask, why is this happening? Why is the season capitulated as badly as it has? Your sporting director really is that man who has to take that on his shoulders and take a lot of the blame, I would say.
You got a load of issues this year, and it's only, getting towards the end of Feb, isn't it? You've got the whole playing through coronavirus thing where we could have called games off, but we decided to play weakened sides. You've got the state of the pitch, which undoubtedly cost us points against Lincoln, if not Doncaster, because the pitch was just atrocious and didn't suit our style of play, and something should have been done about that there. You've got the timing of Johnson's sacking. You can't tell me sacking the manager on the eve of the transfer window is ever going to be a good idea.
No.
And then you've got the recruitment, as Gav's outlined there. The letting players go when we do not have replacements, and you've left the squad considerably weaker. And then you've got the whole managerial situation. Taking so long to appoint somebody who you could have got in the day after Johnson went, putting the people who he did put in charge of the first team for two vitally important games where we needed to pick up 6 points. Like, you look at Redden, they sacked the manager after the game on Saturday, and they put Paul Ince in as temporary manager while they get somebody sorted out. Like, we should have had some plan in place to deal with Johnson going. And, Jeff, you talked there about, Jack Ross, and when he was in charge, saying that the only plan was promotion. We were led to believe there was a longer-term plan put in place to get this club, sustainably successful over a number of seasons. And, dips in form weren't going to be reacted to. We were going to see the plan out. And it wasn't all hanging on getting promotion this season. But by sacking Johnson when they did, it clearly is all about getting promotion this season. And they've completely stuffed it up. And as you say, looking at it now, getting into the playoffs isn't by any means a bloody certainty. So, there's some serious questions got to be asked about Speakman and how they've actually set this whole thing up, because it is not producing what they said it was going to produce in the way they said it was going to be producing it.
No. And the whole issue of who is in charge of the club, the fact that it dragged on for so long and had to be dragged out of them before you actually found the figures. And so many fans had seen Charlie Methven at every other away game, because he doesn't hide. In fact, he loves being around the director's box still. It's just symptomatic of the whole sort of situation at the club at the moment.
It is, and it just fuels negativity and compounds the whole thing. And when you actually break it all down, the fact that Donald and Methven have shareholding still isn't a surprise. Everybody knew that. Nobody knew how it was divvied up. And when push comes to shove, the problem that people have, and rightly so because we're completely misled by the club, is that Kirill Louis-Dreyfus has at least 10% less than we hoped he would have, because you would hope that he had 51%, so he has the majority at least, and Donald has more than you would hope he has. And really, when you break it down, there's probably 10% that's in the wrong place that you'd hope. But, by the club putting it out, and whoever put that out needs to be taken on a long walk off a short pier, because to say that Dreyfus has a majority shareholder, Donald has a minority, when I think there's, 5% difference, is ridiculous. And whoever did that, you're starting off a new ownership on completely the wrong footing, because it's going to come out. And it's come out now at the worst possible time, fuels negativity. You've got all of this crap needlessly surrounding the club that shouldn't have ever been an issue. And it's just so frustrating that they've let this happen. And again, it's that self-sabotage thing. You're doing things, you're going to be caught out for it. It's going to come out. And you've just stuffed it up completely. Yeah,
it also doesn't help that up the road is one of the richest clubs in the world as well. Who now, a few weeks ago, you thought, it might be derbies again next season. And
how quickly things
now
change.
you're sort of thinking that's not going to happen for another decade, is it?
Well, that's it. And that was it. After the game yesterday, all my mates who are mags were peppering me with messages about the fact we got beat. They're loving it, and if it was the other way around, we'd be the same. But it's this whole. I think Martin hit the nail on the head there, like talking about the self-sabotage thing. We've totally killed our own season. And like I said before, when you look at the teams around us, you know, Ipswich have had a poor season, they're coming up the rails. Chef Wed, they were pretty unlucky to get relegated, really, when you think about it. It wasn't the team's fault they got relegated out of the Championship. It was off-field issues which led to a points deduction, ended up in League One. So, you know, all these teams are sort of fighting to get back where they think they should be, but on different terms to us. We were sat top of the league, 6 weeks ago? After we beat Chef Wed 5-0. And we're now level on points with them, and they've got a game in hand. It just shows you how badly this season has gone, and I'm worried that the trajectory for Sunderland now is pointing so far downwards that all these teams who are gathering momentum, it's not going to be an issue for them to bypass us. So that game on Tuesday night, we have to win. And we've been saying this for weeks, haven't we, Martin? Me and you come on here every Sunday, and we have to win the next game. We have to win the next game. We have to win on Tuesday. We don't win on Tuesday, then I'm with you, Jeff. I think I'm struggling to see how we even finish in the top 6.
The trouble is as well, if we're building this team, we've got all these younger players in who you kind of think, well, you get them in, you work out on them, you let them develop, you let them get better. Ross Stewart, Dan Neil, you know, there's so many players who, if we do not go up this season,
they're gone. Yeah.
Championship clubs will pick them off. Premier League clubs.
Pritchard's another one.
There's so many. We will be left with the absolutely bare bones of a League One team
with a reduced budget again. With a
reduced budget.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to start all over again. And we're not even back at square one. We're further back than that. Looking up at square one, I think that would be a nice place to be.
We aren't normally this negative, really, but you know.
I was going to say, I'm looking outside and the sun's shining anyway. That's it.
It's tipping down here, Jeff.
I can see the bars.
Yeah, well, like I said before, we've got to win Tuesday night. We've got to, and I don't care how we do it. I think he would do himself a big favour, Alex Neil, if he found a way to get some of those players out of the team. But he's got like a day to prepare for it, and I'm at a loss, Jeff, how he even turns it around in terms. I mean, Burton are a proper bogey team for us. They always take points off us.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Few prayers, I think, are probably about the only thing, thing you can offer up at the moment.
I didn't realise they were only sat 12th. So then it's not as if they're down the bottom of the league. They just made a decent signing through the week, didn't they? They signed Umar Nias from somewhere, but he used to play in the Premier League not too long ago. So you can guarantee he'll probably score.
Doesn't matter where clubs are these days. I can't remember. Someone in the office said when Lee Johnson was sacked. Well, at least fortunately, if you haven't got a manager in place, it's only Cheltenham and who else was it? Who was the game?
Doncaster.
So there you go.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Well, we've tried our best to end on a positive, but now we're probably going to have to just accept the fact that we might lose again.
It's difficult at the moment, isn't it?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not going on Tuesday. I had the option to do something else on Tuesday night, and for once I've actually thought I'm not going. I can't put myself through another game, which probably means we'll win, because I've been at every game we've been tonked this season, home and away. So I'm going to try and avoid it. I'll probably watch it in the pub or something while I'm out doing something else, but I'm not going to be there. And that's actually how far my sort of mood's changed as well. When going into that Doncaster game, I've never felt happier, to be honest. We were on such a high running into that game, you know, as evidenced by the amount of people who turned up for it. In a matter of weeks, I'm now like back to where I'm like, I don't really want to go to the game, because it was desperate yesterday, and sometimes I need to give myself a break from my own sanity from being there, so I can look at it a bit more objectively, because emotionally it absolutely ruins you sometimes being in that stadium, watching them the way they are. We're sitting here talking about a potential another season in League One, and I actually think the longer we are down here, it's going to kill the club, because you know, you can't sustain a club this size in League One. You can't, and we just have to finish in the top 6. I don't care how we do it. It's got to be done. And like I've said repeatedly, Tuesday night at Burton is the starting point. It has to be. And if we don't win, I mean, we'll be back to talk about it.
I do remember someone pointing out that Sheffield United spent 6 years at this level and still managed to make it back to the Premier League. And I remember thinking, 6 years? What? The Sunderland won't be down there that long. Well, so, but it can be done. If there's one brave hope, it's that Sheffield United did prove you can come back. So maybe everyone should just cling to that.
That's a positive to end on.
Yeah, we'll end it there. Well, thanks, Jeff. Cheers, mate. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Cheers, Jeff.
You've added some clarity to this shit show of a podcast. But thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to be back probably after the Burton game, maybe during the week. It depends if we win, I suppose. If we win against Burton, then people might want to talk about it. But yeah, join us on ROKERreport.com all the way through the week as we bring you all our latest bits and pieces. And yeah, sorry we couldn't be more positive, but literally there's nothing to be positive about at the minute. Cheers everyone, thanks for joining us.